Hello, Williams class. For your science lesson today, the learning objective is, can I create my own habitat? By the end of this lesson, you will reflect on habitats that you have previously looked at. You will learn about 5 new habitats, and then you will design a habitat of your own. To start us off, I would like for you to think about the different habitats we have explored and discussed. We've looked at the park, our homes, trees, and our world in general. There are also 5 habitats that we've not yet looked at in detail. I will talk you through them now. The first one is desert. So the desert. It is full of miles and miles of sand dunes. Some deserts are rocky with scattered plants and shrubs. There are even deserts that are icy and cold. Deserts are known for their lack of rain, and they're also known for their overall lack of water. It's a very dry place, the desert. They have dry soil. Famous deserts that we might know of already, we have the Sahara Desert, which is in northern Africa, the Arabian Desert in the Middle East, the Gobi Desert in northern China and Mongolia, and also the Kalahari Desert in Africa. Living things that you might find here: meerkats, camels, reptiles like the horned toad and scorpions, grasshoppers, cacti, short trees. And these are just some pictures to inspire you. This is what deserts normally look like. Now, they are dry, but some of them do have like swamps, like their water just here. The second habitat is the forest. The forest never really gets cold or hot. It's sort of somewhere in between. There are 4 distinct seasons in the forest. So just like we experience spring, summer, winter, and autumn, the forest also shows every single season just like that. There is lots of rain throughout the year. There is fertile soil. So what fertile soil means is that any rotted leaves or any other decaying matter, so that means basically animals that have passed away, when their bodies are rotting, they provide a rich, deep soil, and that's really, really good for trees to grow strong roots. The forests can be located in several locations around the world. We have a wide variety of living things here. We have tall trees, we have rabbits, squirrels, foxes, deer, black bears, mountain lions, skunks, timber wolves, birds, and hawks. Some examples of the living things in their natural habitat, the forest. The third living habitat, or habitat where living things can be found, is known as grassland. So the grassland is also known as savannas. And what that means is it's a wide expanse of land, and it's filled with low-growing plants, such as grasses and wildflowers. The amount of rain is not enough to grow tall trees and produce a forest, but it's also just enough to not then form a desert. So if it did have a lot of water and a lot of rain, then the grassland would become a forest, but we don't have enough water for that. But then if we didn't have enough water, it would form a desert, but we have enough water for it to not be a desert. It's, again, in between. Some animals that live in the grassland, you have prairie dogs, wolves, turkeys, eagles, weasels, bobcats, foxes, geese, snakes, mice, and rabbits. And plants that you may find there. Basically, you can find a whole lot of grass, but you have different types of grass: buffalo grass, blue grama grass, needle grass, big blue stem grass, and switchgrass. Some of the living things in the grassland. Look, I didn't mention giraffes, but you do have giraffes there. Think of the Lion King, basically, that's what comes to my mind when I think of grassland. The fourth habitat is the wetland. The wetland, it's a combination of land and water, and you can actually tell from the name it's wet and land. Wet refers to the water and land refers to the land. It's land that's been saturated with water. So what that means is that the water has then made the land really, really wet, but not wet enough for it to be, the sea or the ocean or a river, although you do have rivers there, but it is still very, very, very wet. The land may be mostly underwater for part of the year, or just flooded at certain times. And the biggest feature of the wetland, what makes the wetland a wetland, is that it supports aquatic plants. So plants that only live in water, nowhere else really. Animals that you might find here: alligators, crocodiles, beavers, minks, raccoons, and deer. And the plants that you might find here are milkweed, water lilies, duckweed, and cypress trees. These are plants that really, really thrive from a lot of water. This is wetland for you. A lot of underwater land going on there. You've got animals that are swimming as well. There you go. And fifth and final habitat is the tundra. Now, a tundra is a cold and treeless plain where harsh conditions make it really hard for plants and animals to survive. So it's very rare for you to see any trees there. Think of Ice Age when you're thinking of what a tundra might look like. It's cold, dry, and barren. Barren means you can't find many nutrients there, so that's what makes it even harder for plants and animals to survive. You can see long winters and short summers there, so there are only 2 seasons. The winters last for about 8 months, so 8 out of 12 of the months. What's that as a fraction? That is around that's 2/3 of the whole year. That's crazy. That's a long, long time. There are more winters than there are summers. It's a very, very short summer, but you don't have spring and autumn like we do. Around 20% of the Earth's land surface is covered with tundra. Animals that you might find here, you have the caribou, the Arctic hare, the ermine, Arctic fox, snowy owl, and musk oxen. And the plants that you might find here: grasses, shrubs, herbs, and lichens. Here are the animals that you might find in the tundra. Notice how they are all white. That might have something to do with the fact that because they don't get much sun, their fur just doesn't ever get much colour on it. You have some sort of pigment, some sort of marks on the snowy owl here, but for the most part, they're just pure white. Now the time has come, my explorers. You will be making your very own habitat. So you can pick one from the 5 that we have looked at in today's lesson, or one that you have thought of independently. So you can choose from wetland, forest, tundra, grassland, and the desert, or you can choose one that you have thought of yourself. Now, I thought I'd give you some ways that you could make these at home and in school. You don't have to follow these if you don't want to, but just some suggestions. If you want to make the desert, what you'd have to do is find a shoebox or a plastic container and fill it with sand. And you could make the sand surface uneven, because if you notice in the desert, the sand it's not plain. There are bumps across the plain. Make sand dunes and ditches by moving the sand around with your hand. Now, if you don't have sand available, you could just get soil, or you might have to just draw it. Scatter a few rocks in the box, and then you can add 2 or 3 pieces of greenery. So cacti live in the desert because they can hold water. I actually used to have lots and lots of cacti when I was younger, but unfortunately they died, so I can't show you. But cacti would have been a great addition to your habitat if you're choosing to create a desert. If you do have some at home, that would be fantastic to add. The forest. If you choose to design a forest, you can fill a shoebox or plastic container halfway with dirt, put leaves from the trees in the dirt. Maple, oak, and walnut trees are commonly found in forests. And then cut a piece of blue plastic wrap and set it on the dirt. This acts as the water. You can choose to paint this if you don't have blue tissue paper, blue plastic wrap, or anything blue. If you are making grassland, what you can do is cut out a piece of plastic, lay it in the shoebox or plastic container, add greenery, and then cut a blue piece of plastic wrap for a body of water and set it in the habitat. You can paint this as well. Grassland is probably the simplest one you could do, which would be interesting to then see how you could make it really stand out and make it look like a grassland. You then have wetland, so you could paint the surface blue and fill the rest of the box with dirt, add a bit of greenery. Again, similar to grassland, very simple it sounds, but I'm sure that you could think of a way to make it really look like a wetland or really look like a grassland. Tundra. Now, to make a tundra, you can make hills and dunes, use blue tissue paper or paint along the edge for the water, and then add greenery. Now, what I haven't mentioned, boys and girls, is you must remember that when you will have access to boxes if you're at school, and at home as well. Hopefully you'll have a plastic container that you could use. Make sure that along with the habitat, you're also thinking about what's around that habitat, the sky, the flora is very important, but also the animals that live there, the plants that live there as well. We went through those habitats and the animals and the plants for a reason. It's to make it fresh in your memory. So then when you are making these habitats, you're able to add those features that would make it even more realistic. So your 3 challenges are as follows. Challenge number 1, on a piece of paper or whiteboard, I would like for you to first design your habitat. Pick one environment, think about the living things that would live there and what features you would need to include so that your design is accurate. So this is your planning part of the lesson. Once you've planned it, then you can build it. So build your very own habitat. You can choose to do this on a piece of paper, on card, or you can experiment with a box of some kind, a container. I would use a cardboard box if I had to choose, but it is completely up to you where you choose to build your habitat on. And then task number 3 is to have a walking gallery. So show off your habitat, talk about it, present it to those around you, make sure you post it on Tapestry and explain what makes your habitat, explain what makes it so special. Oh yes, I'll leave it there. The rest is all on you now, boys and girls. Enjoy making your habitat, have fun, be creative, think about colour, think about animals, plants, adding as much greenery as possible, and I'm really excited to see what your habitats look like. See you later, bye!